know what it is. Perhaps you've written one. You might have written one and you don't know you've written one. Anybody? All right. Well, it's the first kind of writing that we're going to do, and it's a pretty, I would say it is like a personal story. Exactly, Nathan. Yes. So it's pretty, I would say the simplest kind of writing that we're going to do. So I like to start there and kind of get everybody's feet wet. So it tells a story in the order that events happened. So the word chronological means in order by time, right? So it's in the order that something happened. And then narrative means you're telling a story. So you're telling a story in the order that it happened. It wouldn't make sense to tell a story in the wrong order after all, would it? But it doesn't have to be a personal story. It can be. It can be about yourself. It can be about another person. It can be about an animal, an object, an occurrence. So you could even write a chronological narrative about a historical event, right? So something that happened in history, like you could tell a chronological narrative about, how a war got started, or about a certain battle in a war, or about something that happened to a presidential candidate, the shooting of JFK, whatever, like any historical event, you could write a chronological narrative telling what happened, right? Same with a scientific discovery. So we could write about how, I don't know. You have an idea, Ryan? Yeah. What kind of scientific discovery could we write about? Like the person who discovered, I don't know, cells. Like you could talk about that, how that happened, or a person who discovered a cure for something. You could talk about how the cure came to be, right? It could be, or in botany. Yeah, good, Abby. It could be, but it's a story about something, how something happened in botany, right? Not just about botany in general, but like a specific chronological event related to botany. How a plant grows, for example, right, would be a chronological event. A personal story, a novel, a short story, a biography telling about your life, someone else's life, those are all chronological. Good. Yeah. Sending a man to the moon. Excellent. Yeah, all that. All right. So those are all examples of chronological narratives. It can include dialogue. So if you're telling a story, for example, and you want to include dialogue, you can do that. Definitely, if you're only writing a paragraph, you probably don't want to do that. But if it fits in and you're writing a novel or a short story or a biography, it would be appropriate. You should use first person pronouns if it's about yourself. So if it's a personal story, you're telling about something you did or something that happened to you, then you should use first person. I, me, right? We, us. But if it's about a historical event or scientific discovery or a different person, another person, then it wouldn't make any sense to use I or me or we, right? All right, so where might we see chronological narratives in the wild? So in our everyday lives, where might we encounter chronological narratives? And autobiographies, good. On Google, yeah, for sure. Yeah, in books, good, good. What kind of book? Well, oh yeah, the Bible. Good, Nathan. The Bible is mostly chronological narrative, right? A lot of it is, you've also got letters and poetry and different things, but a lot of it's chronological narrative. Good, Sophia. Lab procedures are going to tell you, yes, the order that you should do things. They're not so much telling you a story, so they are chronological, but they're more expository or instructional. But if you later told what you did in your experiment, that would be telling the story of the event. So, yeah, that would work. On the news, good. In history books, for sure. Yeah, excellent. All right. Yeah, a magazine or newspaper that's telling an article, has an article about an event for sure. Good. All right. So a narrative. Here is one, for example, and it's really bad, obviously. We're going to fix it. So here it goes. We had to build a frame for the floor of the house. We used a rope to raise all the woods up into the tree. We carefully nailed the board to the frame. We had a floor. All right. So are these events for telling about something that happened? And are they in chronological order? Are they in the order from the first thing we did to the last thing that we did? If we were going to do whatever it is that it's telling us to do, are they in the right order? Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. All right. So it is a narrative and it is in chronological order. All right, but it's kind of weak, right? It's really weak. So let's look at some things that we can do to it. First of all, we need to use, it is very boring. We need to use some chronological keywords, all right, or in other words, transitions, right? So here is a chart, and I'm going to give you this chart in Canvas as well. It's really helpful. And hey, actually, hold on. I forgot I put this in your workbook. Okay, so in your workbook, go to the very back. It's page 203. You might have noticed it because it's after your diagramming help pages. Yeah, you can take a screenshot of it for sure, but also it's right here. So on page 203, it says transitions and keywords. And the very first one is chronological. Do you see that? So here's this whole list of chronological keywords right there handy where you can access it. Also, so these are all ones that mean before, all ones that mean first, last, next, and sometimes. So these are really handy to sprinkle into your chronological narratives. Now, do we want to put too many of these in there? You know, this morning, my husband loves to make breakfast. So he made me this wonderful egg muffin this morning, and he apologized because the salt came out too fast. He said it might be a little too salty. So if you think about it, a chronological cue, any kind of transition word, if we put too many of them in there, our writing becomes a little too salty, right? It's overkill. We don't want that, just like I didn't want too much salt on my muffin. We want a little bit, but not overdone, right? All right. So when we do a chronological narrative, we want to put some of those in. So let's try this. The first thing we had to do was build a frame for the floor of the house. Then we used a rope to raise all the wood up into the tree. Afterward, we carefully nailed the board to the frame, and soon we had a floor. All right, so this is a little better, right? Because we have some transition words. What else is a little bit better here than before? What do you notice about the transition words? What do you notice about the last sentences, the last two sentences? Do do transition words always have to go at the beginning of the sentence? Yeah. Good, right. Combined some of those sentences. Right before Nathan, every sentence started with we, so this definitely fixed that problem. Emmeline says it makes it sound more smooth, especially combining those last two sentences. Right, and you're right, Ryan. No, we don't always have to put the transition word at the beginning. In fact, if we do, then that starts to get a little bit redundant too, right? So you have to be careful about that. Every sentence doesn't have to have one. I might have sprinkled just a little extra salt on this one, but I just wanted to make sure you understood different ways that you could use these transition words. All right. So there's still a few things that aren't great about it. It's still missing something for sure. What's it missing? If it's a paragraph, if this is a paragraph, what is missing? For sure, we could use some details. Yes, good. But what we absolutely have to have if it's a paragraph? Yeah, we definitely need to have a topic sentence. Yeah, for sure. So, how about this? Last weekend, my siblings and I built a treehouse. Oh, well, that makes the whole thing make more sense, doesn't it? So, this student, or this was a pretense, this was just me, just an example. In the example, I just started telling about building it, right? But I never said that it was a treehouse. We assume it's a treehouse. Eventually, we figure that out, right? At first, we think it's a regular house, but then when we talk about a tree, we're like, oh, I guess this is a treehouse, but we don't really know. So we need to make it clear what it is that this is about, right? Notice it does not say, in this paragraph, I'm going to write about building a treehouse, right? We don't need to talk about the paragraph. We just need to talk about what it is that we did. Last weekend, my siblings and I built a treehouse. I got it. Now that makes sense. What else is it missing? If this is a paragraph, structurally, what else do I need? Some details would be nice, some better word choices would be nice, but what do I absolutely have to have here? The end, very good. Yes, I have to have a conclusion. So should my conclusion be, in conclusion, that's how we built our treehouse? No, why not? Definitely not. So that would be redundant, right? So you already said you're building a tree house. So duh, right? Obviously you built a tree house. It would be boring. That's right. So remember our goal in a conclusion is to either answer the question, so what? So you built a tree house. Who cares? Or have a call to action. Encourage other people to build a tree house. That might be kind of weird in a chronological narrative, but a so what would probably work. So let's try it. Now that our treehouse is finished, we have a great place to write in our journals. Ah, awesome. Love how I did that. Notice that. See, got a little plug for the journals in there. All right, well, all right, so here it's a so what? So you built a treehouse. Well, now we have a great place where we can write in our journals. So you see how that conclusion is more effective than just repeating what it is that you did. All right, it is still a little bit boring. We could still use some better word choices. Thing is, the first step maybe would be better, right, than the first thing. Um, or even just first, we built a frame, right? We don't even need the and thing at all. We could take those out. All right, so there are other details that we can add for sure, but you get the idea. We're going to practice